What is going on, snooker fans? Welcome back to the channel. Now, what an opening first 6 days we've had at the World Championship. The first round has now reached a conclusion, and it's been one of the best first rounds that the crucible has produced for quite a few years. Look, the crucible curse got its latest victim on the opening Saturday night, with defending champion Luca Bressel surrendering a 9-6 lead to lose to Dave Gilbert. In total, we have lost 8 top 16 players, the joint record for the most qualifiers getting through, a record that also happened in 1992 and 2012. And look, we've not had a qualifier win the World Championship since Murphy 19 years ago, but there are plenty of them still in the running this year as we approach the middle weekend. We've also had 4 deciders to cap off what has been a really compelling opening round to this year's World Championship. As for my predictions, well, that's not so fantastic. I only got 8 correct winners out of 16, but I also got no correct scorelines, which I'm a little bit disappointed by, but we move. Same as my preview of the opening round, in this video I will be going through all the last 16 matches, highlighting some key statistics, and seeing if we can predict the 8 men who will ultimately get through to the quarterfinals. And we start right at the beginning with the Kingslayer himself, David Gilbert, who got only his second win at the Crucible since making the semi-finals 6 years ago. It does have to be said, to be fair, in that first round that Dave did get let off the hook a little by Luca, who really did have plenty of chances early on in the match to kind of put the tie to bed very early. But every credit goes to Gilbert. The longer the match went on, the more he settled. And from 9-6 down, he really warmed to the task. And he finished off the match very, very strongly indeed. He's up against Rob Milkins, and well, he also came through a deciding frame against Pang Jung-soo, but it was a match very low on quality. The match only had 6 breaks above 50, being made between the pair in 19 frames. And, the evening session in particular was littered with enough easy misses to kind of make a compilation over. But Milkins just about held it together better to get through to the last 16 for the 5th time in his career, though he has never made it to a Crucible quarter-final. And this match does represent a big chance for both players who do fly under the radar this year. If both play like they did in their first round, then it's fair to say that Gilbert wins, probably with a session to spare. But no one match in this sport is the same, and Milkins may just relax a little bit more here. Milkins can also be comforted by the fact that he leads the head-to-head between these two 6-2, and he also beat Dave 4-0 in Wales a couple of months ago. With all that said though, I do fancy Dave to find a little bit of inspiration from that win over Bressel, and I've got him down to win this second round tie 13-7. Next up, we have a second round tie between 2 players who have a little bit of needle with one another, Shaun Murphy and Stephen Maguire. Now, like usual, snooker fans do tend to overhype any kind of rivalry in this sport because there's been so few of them. And look, there's nothing ever sort of nasty or malicious in this matchup, but it's fair to say that they're not exactly the best of mates either. And of course, it all started back in 2004 during that Chalkgate incident where Maguire was docked a frame for forgetting his chalk in the changing room, and it's highly speculated that Murphy sort of pressured the referee into docking him that frame. But focusing on both of their first rounds, well, Maguire, he got a very tidy victory over Masters finalist Ali Carter. I thought he started the match very well, and the way he pulled away from 7 each was equally as impressive, because I do feel like it was a match where towards the end people were backing Ali Carter to win it, but Maguire held himself together very well. Shaun Murphy, well, he also impressed at times during his 10-4 win over Liu Haoshan, although it must be said that at times Liu made it far, far too easy for the magician, and you would imagine he won't be getting those types of gifts this time against Maguire. Looking at the head-to-head, well, these two, they've played each other on 24 previous occasions, and the head-to-head could not be any closer, both locked at 12 wins apiece. The last time they played each other was also at this very venue 2 years ago, when Maguire won 10-8 in the first round. That was their one and only meeting at the World Championship, although looking sort of further back, they've also contested 2 UK semi-finals, both have 1 win apiece, and they've also contested 1 final all the way back at the 2008 China Open, Maguire winning that in a decider. But going back to sort of that match 2 years ago, It was just about as fired up as you'll ever see Maguire in a match, and I expect him to approach this match in a similar way, knowing a win will get him to his first Crucible semi-final in 5 years. Both will bring their best out of each other, and it'll be a match to savour over 3 sessions, and I am just going to back Maguire to do it again. So my prediction here is Stephen Maguire to win 13-11. Up next, we've got Joe O'Connor against Kyren Wilson, and as far as Crucible debuts go, they don't get much better than beating a 4 times world champion, but that's exactly what Joe done. While Selby, of course, was far from his best and made further comments hinting that he may be stepping away from the game, and that's something I'll focus on perhaps in another video. It was a very assured performance from Joe, who settled quickly into the match, and never really looked like slipping up in that second session. Kyren Wilson, well, he arguably produced the best snooker of anyone in round 1, making a century and 8 further breaks over 50 in beating Dominic Dale 10-1. Tougher challenges, of course, await Kyren, and particularly could be in this match. But he again was a man that looked completely locked in from ball 1 and will be very difficult to stop here. There are just 2 previous meetings between the pair, with the last coming 5 years ago, which O'Connor won. And I do think this match will be a lot closer than maybe a lot of people expect. And of course, this tournament in particular has shown that nothing can be taken for granted this year. But I am still going to side with Kyren, so my prediction is Kyren to win 13-10. John Higgins against Mark Allen is the next matchup in the second round. And you know what? It does seem to be a matchup that keeps on happening recently. And as I was looking through Q Tracker earlier, it was confirmed that this will be the 6th meeting between these two this season alone, and their 5th meeting between the pair in 2024. It'll also be their 3rd Crucible meeting, following a semi-final in 2009 and another second round matchup in 2017, Higgins winning both of those occasions. The overall head-to-head though, well, that is 14-11 in Mark Allen's favour, and the Northern Irishman has won their past 2 multi-session matches. I thought both of them were pretty professional in their respective opening round matches, with neither player producing amazing snooker, but doing something that a lot of the seeds have struggled to do, and that was just producing a good enough level to get through, which is all you have to do in the first round here. You can wait to find your A game later in the tournament. With this match though, my gut is telling me to back Allen, but Higgins can never be discounted at this venue. I do just think Allen has a slight edge over John at the moment, and we know he can play a style of match that once completely suited John Higgins, but is now more of a level playing field. So my prediction here is Mark Allen to win 13-10. Going into the second half of the draw, and we've got Judd Trump, and Judd kicked off his bid for a second world title with a very measured 10-5 win over Hussein Fafai. In all honesty, it was a match that was a lot closer than perhaps the scoreline suggests, but ultimately Judd was just far more clinical in punishing his opponent's inability to kill off a lot of the frames. The World Championship in particular is not about how you start the marathon, but it's how you finish. And if Judd can get into the second week unscathed, you do fancy him to get better and better, which is something that he'd done back in 2019 when he won it. Tom Ford, he got his first Crucible win at the 5th attempt, which is exactly what Luke Brassell done last year, and he'd done it against the exact same man Brassell beat in the first round last year too. So if you're one for superstitions, you might have a slight eye on that statistic. Tom has often sort of struggled to perform his absolute best here, but in general he looks pretty composed, and beating someone with Walden's experience with frames to spare is always a feather in your cap. Now looking at the head-to-heads, these two have played each other at the Crucible twice before, both in the first round, Judd winning 10-8 on both occasions, back in 2014 and 2020. The overall head-to-head is also comfortably in Judd's favour, who's won 11 of their 16 matches, so it is very hard to go against him here. I do think Tom will push him all the way, but I also don't see Judd losing a session, so I think he'll get to the finish line with a bit to spare here. So my prediction is Judd Trump to win 13-8. Next up, we've got a match that is potentially the tie of the entire second round, and it's definitely the matchup that I'm looking forward to the most. Both of these men were two of the biggest stories from the World Championship 12 months ago. Both made their debuts last year, with Jones reaching the quarterfinals, and C, of course, was within a couple of frames of reaching the final. And they've both more than proved that they are not just one-trick ponies here, coming back this year as qualifiers again and winning their opening matches. In all honesty, Jack, well, he wasn't hugely impressive in his first round win over Zhang Anda, but look, he didn't have to be. Zhang never ever settled into the match and also presented Jack with so many easy chances that it was just a case of limiting the unforced errors and he'd win comfortably, and that's exactly what happened. C, on the other hand, was quality in his win over Williams, particularly in that second session. The 70-odd break that he made in the decider after Willow came back at him was one of the most impressive of the lot. I asked a question in my preview of the first round about whether that semi-final loss 12 months ago had left any sort of crucible scars on him, but he again just looked so comfortable out there. And there, he almost looks like a man with no memory of that collapse last year. It's a matchup between two very contrasting styles. Jack's more measured approach against C's kind of all-out attack tactics. And, this really does make for a fascinating match, and one of these men will make it to back-to-back Crucible quarterfinals, which is a hugely rare thing for a qualifier to do. I'm certain Jack will improve from his opening round, and he also just edges their previous 3 meetings 2-1, including a win over C at this season's International Championship. And look, you can make a pretty strong case for either of these men, so I'm just going to have to go for it to go to a decider, and I'm going to back C to win 13-12. The penultimate match of this year's second round is again 2 qualifiers, and look, you'd be forgiven for assuming that both of these would be seeds and their qualifiers only by name. Lisowski, he edged past Ding in a decider in what was probably the best match of the opening round. And whilst you can't help but feel sorry for Ding for having another first round heartbreak here, every credit goes to Jack, holding his nerve by dominating the decider after Ding had come back at him. Bingham was equally impressive in his comfortable win over Gary Wilson, and he could have won by an even more handsome margin if he hadn't missed that black of the spot to go 7-2 up. Wilson, who I backed as a bit of an outside bet, was very disappointing, but I feel like I need to reevaluate how I predict Bingham because I basically completely ruled out his chances of qualifying, and then I predicted him to lose first round too. And whilst he has had an awful couple of seasons, he does still remain as a big match player, underlined by the fact that this is the 6th year in a row that Stuart's won his first round match here, both as a seed and as a qualifier. And he got to the semis 3 years ago as a qualifier then, and to the quarterfinals here in 2022 as well. The winner of this match also knows that winning here, and they'll be rewarded with potentially a quarterfinal with Ronnie OSullivan, and playing Ronnie at the Crucible is something I think every player aspires to. Bingham's done it twice before, and Bingham has beaten Ronnie here. But yeah, there's a huge sort of carrot dangling for the winner there. Trying to pick the bones out of this match though is made even harder by the fact that the head-to-head is locked at 4 wins apiece. The most notable of those meetings was at the Crucible back in 2018, which was the last time Bingham lost in the first round here, Jack winning that match 10-7. Again, everything points to this being very close, but after continuing to back against him, I may have learned my lesson, and I'm going to back Bingham's experience to overcome Jack Lisowski. So my prediction is another decider, and Stuart Bingham to win 13-12. Now we've got, last but not least, OSullivan against Ryan Day, the 2 last men in this last 16 draw. And starting with OSullivan, well, just like Kyren Wilson did, OSullivan absolutely blitzed his qualifier opponent. Jackson Page, he did make a 1-4-2, to be fair to him, in the only frame that he won. But the issue you have with Jackson is the style of play that he plays is very open, very attacking. And if he doesn't get a high percentage of the pots that he goes for, he's going to give really easy opportunities away. And that's exactly what he done. And when you're doing it against someone like OSullivan, you're going to be punished. As for O'Sullivan, I thought it was, again, very professional performance from him. There was none of this sort of exhibition style play that he produced early on in the UK Championship at the Masters. He looked on it from ball one this week. And it's an ominous sign for the rest of the tour if he's looking that good early on. And also in his post-match interview, there was none of this sort of fake humbleness. You know, he was very much upping himself. He's backing his chances. He's going to be very, very difficult to stop. Ryan Day, well, I was very impressed by him as well. You know, he was 5-4 up on Barry Hawkins going into the second session, and Hawkins then went 8-5 ahead, and it kind of looked like Day had just completely wilted out of that match. But every credit to him, he came back after that mid-session interval, and the way he won 5 frames on the bounce to win 10-8 was so impressive, like I say. And, you know, every credit to him for doing that. And he sets up a meeting with O'Sullivan, a man he's played 8 times before, but he's only ever beaten twice. And these two, they have played each other at the World Championship before, but 18 years ago, all the way back in 2006 in the second round, O'Sullivan winning that one 13-10. And look, this is going to be a massive occasion for Ryan Day to play O'Sullivan on the sport's biggest ever stage. But it would take a very, very brave person to bet against O'Sullivan here. And in my mind, I can only see O'Sullivan winning this quite comfortably. I'm hoping we don't see any sort of session to spare jobs, but I think this could be close to one. So my prediction is O'Sullivan to win 13-5. And there we have it, guys. That is the second round draw in full for this year's World Championship. And, you know, like I said at the beginning of this video, this tournament has started off so well from the perspective of a neutral fan. You know, we've had plenty of drama, plenty of deciding frames, tons of seeds going out, you know, lots of underdog stories. But we also have sort of men that are in form still in the tournament. You know, O'Sullivan, Judd Trump, Mark Allen. And then players like Kyren Wilson and John Higgins with plenty of pedigree as well. And the question's raised here, you know, can a qualifier win the World Championship for the first time in nearly 20 years? There's plenty of them to do so. And, you know, Sijai Wee, Jack Jones, you know, they're players that have proved that they have got plenty of know-how already when it comes to the crucible. And they're not fazed by the tournament at all. I'm looking forward to getting my teeth stuck into the second round. You know, as the tournament enters the second week, that's where all the big players want to be. In the second week, you can really get stuck into the tournament, and you know you're only a few days away from potentially winning a World Championship. And also when you get to the second week, you're basically playing every single day. It's a fantastic tournament. You know, there's been things said off the table and articles written about the crucible and its future. I mean, that is something that's really negative, and it's something I'm trying to avoid for the time being, because I just want to enjoy this World Championship, and I don't want to get sort of bogged down by, you know, negative stories which are just ultimately going to upset me. I just want to focus on what's happening on the table. On the table, it's been an absolute fantastic tournament. I hope that standard continues, and I'll be back to preview the quarterfinals in a few days' time. Enjoy the tournament like always, and if you like what you're hearing, drop me a like, drop a comment, and give us a subscribe if you're not already. Cheers, guys.